Sophia often looked at herself in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman she had become. She couldn't believe how much her life had changed in such a short time. She had once been a young woman full of dreams, eager to explore the world with her love, Marco. But now, at 35, everything seemed different, distant. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. It had been a warm summer evening when Sophia had first met Marco. The lights of the sunset illuminated the square of the small town where she had grown up. The sky seemed painted pink and orange, and the air was scented by the wisteria that adorned the streets. She had gone out for a walk after a long day of work, eager to enjoy some peace. It was then that she saw him, tall, with dark hair tousled by the wind, and a smile that seemed to light up everything around him. Their love story was born almost by chance, as if fate had put them in front of each other at that perfect moment. Sophia and Marco fell madly in love. Their days were filled with laughter, with walks hand in hand along the shores of the lake, with evenings spent talking about their dreams and ambitions. He often spoke of building a life together, of traveling to distant lands, and of a cozy home where they could raise their children. She dreamed of painting and continuing her passion for art. The two seemed perfect for each other. After only a year, Marco knelt before her during one of their evening walks, a small box in his hands. "Sophia," he said, his voice shaking, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Sophia didn't hesitate for a moment. She said yes, and their life took a direction that seemed perfect. The first years of marriage were a dream. They traveled together, visited cities of art, explored landscapes, and each experience brought them closer together. Sophia, meanwhile, put her paintbrushes aside, convinced that her true calling was to be the perfect wife for Marco, and soon the mother of their children. When Tommaso was born, Sophia's life changed completely. She was ecstatic about being a mother, and everything revolved around the baby. Marco at first was over the moon, but as time went by, things started to change. Marco's business took over, and Sophia began to feel lonely. The evenings they once spent together were now dominated by silence or by Marco's absences, often busy with business trips. Their second daughter, Alice, was born 2 years after Tommaso, but instead of filling that void, she seemed only to accentuate the distance between her and Marco. Sophia tried to talk to Marco, but every time her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. "Don't make up problems," he often told her, his tone annoyed. "You have everything you could ever want, a house, 2 wonderful children. What more do you want?" Marco's words hurt her deeply. She felt that, as he became more and more distant, she was losing herself in a world of routine, of children's nightly cries, and a growing sense of isolation. Her mother-in-law, Elena, also began to visit more and more, but instead of being supportive, she seemed to want only to judge and criticize her every gesture. "Sophia, dear," he said in that saccharine tone that Sophia was beginning to hate, "you should try harder. Marco works so hard for you, you should make sure he finds the perfect house when he gets back." Each criticism was like a thorn that sank deeper into Sophia's heart. She felt she was never enough, not good enough as a mother, not present enough as a wife. And every attempt to talk to Marco always ended the same way, with a refusal or, even worse, with an accusation of being too demanding. One evening, after yet another argument, Sophia felt tears rolling down her face as she tucked the children in. In her heart, she knew something had to change, but she didn't know how to deal with that mountain of problems that seemed to crush her. That night, she couldn't sleep. She stayed awake, thinking back to when she and Marco had fallen in love, how everything seemed so simple and beautiful at the beginning. But now that dream seemed to have vanished, replaced by a cold and distant reality. The next morning, with the sun streaming in through the windows, she made a decision. I have to talk to Marco, she thought. I have to fight for our family. But when she tried to confront him, he already seemed distant, lost in his own world. Sophia, we don't need a marriage counselor, he said brusquely. You're just overreacting. Sophia's heart broke. Marco no longer saw her, no longer listened to her, and she began to realize that perhaps it had always been this way. Despite her efforts, the distance between them grew day by day, and the loneliness she felt became unbearable. One evening, overhearing a conversation between Marco and his mother, she realized that her mother-in-law was talking behind her back, telling Marco that she was not fit to be his wife, that perhaps it was time to make drastic decisions. That night, Sophia felt her world collapse around her. The marriage she had tried to save, the family she had tried to keep together, all seemed destined to vanish. But against all odds, that knowledge gave her new strength. I have to do something, she thought, for myself and for my children. So one morning, while Marco was away on business, Sophia took the children and carried them away. She still didn't know where to go, but she knew she couldn't stay in a house that felt like a prison. She called an old friend, Lucia, who lived in a nearby town, and asked for help. Lucia welcomed her with open arms, offering her a place to stay until she found a solution. Over the next few months, Sophia began to rebuild her life. It wasn't easy. Every day was a challenge, but little by little, she began to find herself again. She took up painting again, a hobby she had long since abandoned, and over time, her paintings began to attract the attention of critics and enthusiasts. Little by little, her life regained color, and along with her artistic career, Sophia discovered a new inner strength. When, after months of separation, Marco tried to get back together, Sophia understood that their marriage was over. She still loved him, maybe, but now she knew she could not go back. She had found a new path, a path that allowed her to finally be free and happy. 5 years later, Sophia opened her third solo exhibition. At her side were her children, Tommaso and Alice, grown up and proud of their mother. Elena, her mother-in-law, was there too, changed and full of respect for the woman she had always underestimated. And in the crowd there was also Marco, silent, with a look of regret. But Sophia no longer felt pain, only gratitude for everything she had experienced and for the woman she had become. Now, standing before the blank canvas of her studio, she knew that her life, like her art, was constantly evolving. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face any challenge that came her way. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.